Tyler, today we have a very different guest, someone that you brought to the table, Gen Z, I believe.
Could be.
A Gen Z finance content creator.
Yeah.
I think I got that perfect.
Yeah, that sounds better than a very different guest.
Today we have a very different
I guess it's
guest.
different for us. It's not our typical guest. It's not
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
that's what I
knew
meant.
what you meant, but you're gonna open up the
Let's just clear it
podcast. You'd
up,
be like,
yeah.
they called us a different guest. So we had on Ajla Brama, who her Instagram page, TikTok page, I believe is Ajla Talks. That's AJLA.
Yes,
But
underscore talks.
Yeah, she puts out a bunch of content revolving around finances, saving, investing, tax strategy, just kind of, she calls them hacks. They're short little tidbits that, again, we kind of hit this at the end of the discussion, but it's not necessarily, we're not digging into the specifics of this. You can go to her page and check that stuff out, but it's to get the ball rolling and for you, to start to help yourself. And just, we touch on a lot of different things as far as business goes. She's also a business owner. She went to college for general business. I think she has a marketing degree, but it's a really good page and a really good follow for you guys and girls to kind of, if you have not, or even if you have, start to get your feet wet with investing and tax strategy and business owner, not business owner, whatever. It's just really good digestible content that can kind of start this journey for you.
And I think that, with that being said, one of the reasons that we wanted her on is money is just such a big topic, especially right now with, everyone's talking about the uncertainty of the economy and but all of that aside, we oftentimes put our finances on the back burner as to figuring them out or making sure that we're approaching them correctly because we're so engulfed in the work. Where, just like Tyler said, this is she produces digestible content, and for me personally, when I started following her and some of these other pages, it wasn't that I was just sitting there consuming this as this is how I'm being educated. What it was is, here I am consuming these little tidbits of information that it is spiking my interest to go question
Correct.
my money and my money with my CPA, my CFO, my insurance company, my personal finances, budgeting. It started really making me more aware and creating habits in my own life that allow me to make better financial decisions, both personally and business. And that's really what this is about, is, for those that are struggling to maybe get their finances straight, or maybe that not fully sure how to, take advantage of what we collectively call tax loopholes, but really take advantage of tax law and understand the opportunities that you have from a tax liability standpoint. This is going to be a great, entry level discussion into that.
Yeah, she's what she does and what she puts out is leading you to the water, exposing you to all of these opportunities, but it's really going to be up to you guys to bend over and take that drink. So hopefully, I thought it was a great conversation. I'd love to have her on more. We have not spoken to her about this, but potentially even for 20 minutes here or there, just kind of what's new, what's going on, what are you seeing, and I like her energy and I like what she's doing, and I think she'd be a great return guest. So hopefully you guys and girls like it, and as always, let us know what you think with reviews. Hop on Spotify, you can have reviews. iTunes, you can have reviews. I know that we're giving out some t-shirts, hats and stuff like that, but yeah, we appreciate your feedback and your input, and it definitely helps us out.
Yeah. So with that being said, let's get into it. Thank you for being on.
Thank you guys for having me.
Sure. I'm Tyler. That's Nick.
I'm Nick.
Awesome. Ajla.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you guys too. I'm excited.
Are you?
I am. Why not?
I mean, it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm not going to lie.
Well, we can make it exciting too.
It's going to be super exciting. I think, Nick, did I send you her handle? I don't know when I started following you from like my personal account and then my business account.
Oh, cool.
Not
you had
super
sent
long
me
ago.
You had sent me her link, and I was like, no, I already follow her. I get her
Got this.
TikToks. Like, the moment I open TikTok, she's on it. So.
Oh, no. Not the TikTok. That's funny.
No, I think it's awesome what you're doing.
Thank
and
you.
The reason, and Tyler, I think would agree, like the reason that we really wanted you on, the Modern Craftsman, it's always been about craftsmanship and business and building a business around craftsmanship. And what you're doing and what so many people are doing with social media in finance is so interesting to me.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example. I had hired a new CPA last spring, and I'm on I had fired my CPA because I just felt as though they were doing a bad job, and every year was this like mad dash to, hey, you owe so much, $100,000 in taxes, and it's due tomorrow.
Yep.
So I was getting so frustrated, and I started finding all of these accounts where it's like, hey, this is a tax loophole. Not a loophole, but like, here's a tax benefit of doing this.
A hack.
And yeah, it's a hack. And all of these things. And I finally was like, why don't I know this stuff?
Yeah.
And I ended up hiring this new CPA, and I have all these notes, right? I've been taking notes from TikTok. It's like, it seems foolish, but it's
No,
very
I love
much,
it.
but it's very much how we're being educated these days. And obviously, yes, disclaimer, there's a lot of bad information out there, but I'm sitting with the CPA and I'm running through things and I'm like, hey, and I want to make sure I'm taking advantage of this. And he stops and he goes, are you learning this like on social media? I'm like, I am. He goes, that's great. I love it. He goes, that's, not a lot of people know about that hack. I'm like, I know. This is why I'm paying people to do this for me. Why wouldn't I know about this?
Wow. And then was he like, oh, I'm going to do it for you? Or was he kind of like...
He knew the
He was like, what's your TikTok handle?
Yeah. These TikTokers, the amount of times I've heard that.
See, that's how you found her before me, because I'm not on TikTok.
Still, you're not on TikTok in 2022?
I guess not. I don't know. I feel like my time is limited, and I spend enough time on my phone that, like, I don't need. Maybe I don't think I need TikTok.
I don't know why it's such a time suck, but it is. It is. If my wife goes out and I put the kids to bed and I sit down, and I'll turn the TV on, and then I'll just like, how you automatically open apps on your phone, like you don't even mean to do it. I'll just open up and TikTok, and next thing I know, it's like 3 hours have went by.
Yeah.
I'm like, I sat down to get work done and watch like a show in the background, and I've got nothing done.
Yeah. But sometimes you learn about tax hacks, so technically...
So technically I made money.
Right.
What is your background, Ajla?
In life and
life, education, like just in general?
Yeah, so I went to college at FAU in Boca Raton, Florida, and I graduated with a marketing degree, actually, marketing and communications. And I had a big girl job, kind of throughout college. And then I kind of, like the last 2 months before I was going to graduate, I was like, I can't do this. Like, it was like a cubicle setting that I was in this marketing firm. And I was kind of like pretty up there. I was managing people like twice my age. I was like 22 or 21. And I remember being in traffic and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. So I started my own skincare business originally, in like supernatural skincare. And it took off because I kind of, I understood marketing. I wasn't really doing influencer stuff. So I was outsourcing it to other people. So then growing the business e-commerce and having it in a few stores and salons taught me a lot. From that, the business started making money. So I was like, what do I do with this money? So then I like randomly ran across someone one time at a random coffee shop who was an amazing investor in the stock market. And we just got to talking. He was like an older guy. And he like taught me everything that I knew. And then I just kind of ran with it and started creating content.
So you met a random guy in a coffee shop who taught you.
Yeah.
This was all right. It was more than one sit down at a coffee shop that he taught you everything.
After that.
All right. So I was going to say.
He became a mentor essentially. And for about a year or so, and any questions that I would have or anything like that, like he would always answer it. You know, he was really, really well versed. And essentially I would always ask, like, why are you doing this? And his goal thing kind of was like, he didn't have any kids. He wasn't married. So he was like, this is kind of like something that like I'm leaving behind essentially. Like he was older. So I was like, say less. I'm here for it.
This podcast is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. Tyler, I think I had mentioned this before, but we've been working with Duration and their team on our Needham project. And, you know, I feel like every time we talk to them about like, hey, are you able to fabricate this? Like we have these massive brackets that Steve Teak has designed, and they're like, yep, no problem. And they've kicked us back literally a shop drawing almost immediately and said, this is how much they are. This is how they're going to be made. You know, they're even outsourcing the steel that will support the bracket on the inside, you know, completely one-stop shop, which is nice. We're not having to basically get steel and wrap this stuff. He's building it all in his shop, ready to ship right to our job site. And even the there's a lot of window paneling, or that's not the right term, but paneling underneath some of the bay windows on the home, or boxed out windows, I guess we'll call them. And it's the same thing. It's like, hey, you know, rather than me fabricating this on site, what about making it in the shop and shipping it? You're like, yep, no problem. They can ship it, put it on a pallet, it will come in, and it's simplifying, you know, or it's actually reducing the amount of time that we'll spend doing all this exterior trim carpentry.
Yeah, and anything that's going to be shop built, assuming that it's the right size and fit and finish, is going to typically be a more accurate and longer standing product.
Yeah, and the lead time is super short. So when we're at a position where we can measure the actual final dimension, we can fine tune that shop drawing, kick it back, and we know we have plenty of time for that thing to get fabricated and shipped to us.
Yeah, and even like you said with the steel, that's so nice for somebody else to be handling that, where it's like you're looking to get steel and glass made together, and it's like you're responsible for the steel and somebody else is responsible for the glass, and then if there's fitment issues and going back and forth, it's like one person to deal with, and they're going to handle that, and it just takes all of that responsibility off your plate. There's no back and forth. It's super easy.
Yeah. So if you guys want to learn more about Duration Millwork, head over to durationmillwork.com and be sure to check them out on Instagram. This podcast is brought to you by Rockwool. So if you guys haven't heard already, they have an R-Class program out. It's a partnership program for builders. You know, it's a community. You are basically exposed to a whole group of building pros that are all, you know, committed to building better. And the, you know, whether they're sharing installation techniques, whether they're helping you understand materials or how to install materials, all of that is part of this R-Class program. Forget the swag that they send you, because I mean, don't forget it. It's a pretty nice. It's a pretty nice box. But on top of that, it really is the sense of community and the camaraderie around all of these builders trying to build a better product. And I've mentioned it time and time again. They are involved in all of our projects. You know, Rockwool's been out to our two most recent new builds and have helped us on our renovation projects to make sure that we are insulating the buildings properly, but also making sure that our control layers are in the right spot. You know, oftentimes we're working with the team over at Sega and Rockwool together. But if you guys want to be part of that R-Class program, you guys should definitely consider it.
Well, that's the thing also, that they care enough about the longevity of their product that they're willing to help you sort through those details so that there's no issues down the road. They're not, you know, flying by night and putting out a product and be like, oh, that's on you. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of companies who put out systems that deal with water management and everything else that are like, hey, if you use our product with a combination of this and this, there goes the warranty. And like, they're willing to work with you with all of these different products to ensure that it's a long-standing and quality install. And that's really cool for a company.
So if you guys want to join that R-Class program, head over to rockwell.com/R-Class. This podcast is brought to you by Upstate Merch. So quality focus, screen printing service. You guys know the deal. Upstate prints all of our merch for the Modern Craftsman. If you guys are leaving us reviews on iTunes and we're randomly picking one winner a week, you guys are getting some swag directly from Upstate. They have helped Material Mill Work, NS Builders. They've helped TRG. They are our swag and merch go-to for over 12 years. They've been, building this business and priding themselves on using only the best materials and American-made tools to get your job done. Whether you're looking for giveaway shirts, embroidered hats, streetwear, safety wear, polos, hoodies, whatever you're looking for, top quality garments, outfit your team, they have it covered. They even list a handful of their favorite brands: Bella Canvas, Next Level, Carhartt, Richardson, Bayside. I actually lost my Richardson NS Builders hat the other day.
What is that like the...
It's a trucker.
Oh, yeah.
It flew off in the wind.
Damn. What are we doing? Riding your motorcycle?
I was on the lake, and I turned around.
See,
I had it on backwards, and I know.
That's what you
turned
get.
Around. That's what I get.
Maybe I'll get some TRG streetwear.
You know what? I added that. I added that.
That's sick.
Oh, you had to hang on to it. I read safety wear, streetwear.
Oh.
So, but they do both. You should definitely do some streetwear.
Yeah, that's sick.
And if you want 10% off your streetwear, mention the Modern Craftsman when you email them. print@upstatemerch.com.
Why? I guess I'm kind of going to you went to college and it was marketing, and then like the next best option for you. And this is very common in our industry, but it's like, we don't want to go work for somebody. We're going to start our own business and have no idea how to do that. Like, why did that seem like a good decision for you? Or like the next logical decision?
I think for me, at least, honestly, I've always like had that entrepreneurial thing, whether it was in high school and middle school. I'm from Albania, like I was born there. So my parents, were all from there. So we cook really, really good food. And my mom would make like amazing lunches for me while everybody else was eating like cafeteria food. So I would figure out, okay, like I'm going to sell my lunches. Or I would like buy and sell all the time and then sell things on eBay. You know what I mean? So it was like always an entrepreneurial thing that I had going on. And so it was very natural thing. Like it wasn't, ooh, did I freeze? Are we good? Okay.
You're good.
I thought I froze. So it was a very natural thing. Like I just knew it. My parents knew it. My mom has always told me like I could never see you like working a like, kind of like a standard job, which nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't for me. Like I would literally rather be under a bridge. And I say this all the time. I would rather be under a bridge, like broke, than like answering to someone else or like having someone else tell me like how many days vacation I can take.
And is that a personality, like a trait of your personality or a byproduct of personality or upbringing?
Definitely my own, 100%. Yeah, no. Yeah. I mean, we came to this country and like had nothing, so we didn't even know English. So.
I do think it's interesting, and it's very common, like I said, in our industry where people go to work for someone or they realize they don't like it, and immediately they're like, well, I'm going to start a company. And a lot of us are not entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, let's start a business. We have no idea what to do. And that's kind of, as Nick said, the reason that we want to have you on, because a lot of men and women who have these small construction businesses who don't have a business mindset, they don't have a marketing background, they got into the trades for the sake of being in the trades, and all of a sudden they own a business, and they're not, they don't understand what saving is or how to price a job so that you're able to save. Just business mindset is not usually there with people in our industry. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on and dig into, how you started implementing those things, what you learned, how you learned this. It's funny to me to listen to you, and you're like, yeah, well, I just decided I went to college and then didn't want to do it anymore. And now I'm going to start a business, because it's like, I don't know. That's what I did.
Oh, you did
Well,
it too. Okay, then so you understand kind of like that. It's like this itch. It's almost like you just don't feel right. I don't know how to describe. Like I just knew. Like I've always just known. I don't know. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I was the same. The thought of sitting in an office or working for a bigger company or having to answer to somebody, or like you can only do certain things, say certain things, you can only treat this there's just like all of this red tape and hoops to jump through.
It's crazy.
And I was like, screw that. I have no desire to do that. And foolishly, at that point was like, it'll just be easier to work for myself. But again, had no idea what the heck I was doing at that point.
Was it easier? Because it's not.
No, I mean, not for like 10 years.
Yeah.
No, it was the same for me. I had worked for a bigger developer, and I was doing side work on the side forever. And finally I said, I'm just going to start my own business and do this on my own. But just like Tyler said, our industry is flooded with, owner operators, and they, a lot of times that decision is made like, hey, I have the skill set, I can go and do this myself and charge you whatever an hour. And the problem is there is no, beyond marketing and business itself, there's no financial literacy where they go into it and then it's it's always a surprise, like, hey, you made $100,000 in profit this year, congratulations, you owe $33,000. And it's like, I don't have any money in the bank. What are you talking about? It's like, oh, well, do you have any expense? Like there's so little education in it. And this is what I love about, people like yourself that are out there educating about, they're relatively, not everything, but they're relatively simple to understand, which is great. Mm-hmm. But it's also like, this should be common knowledge. And the fact that it's not common knowledge is a bigger issue.
Yes, 1,000%.
And it's, it's like, well, like we can sit here, I've had conversations where it's like, well, the ultra wealthy, they have all these loopholes and hacks on how not to pay taxes. And it's like, the only reason they have that is because they have the money in order to have the resources to learn it or pay someone to do it. The middle class or the lower class, they don't have the resources to pay someone to do that. Yeah. They're going to H&R Block to do their taxes, and that's like the extent of personal finance that they're taking care of. Should they work with a really great CPA or someone that is a wealth manager, that's when you start spending more money. And it's funny, I've met with a lot of people on the CPA side, and they're always doing the same thing where it's like they're going to explain all the value that they're going to bring you, and it's like, and listen, it's a $20,000 a year commitment, but, and I'm like, I know what your but is, but you're going to save me $20,000. I get that. Like, I understand in that, but that's usually the biggest hurdle why people avoid it. It's like, I don't have the $20,000 up front or the $5,000, whatever it is. And they avoid it and like, I'll just do it myself. And then they get stuck in this repetitive, like, constantly having to pay without understanding like how they could avoid it or defer it or invest it.
Right.
So,
definitely.
When you started your business, in the skincare, how long, like, why did you decide that you needed to start understanding finance?
Oof. To be honest, when I first started my business, it was, can we cuss on here?
Yeah.
It was a shit show. It was, oh my God, it was the worst stress I think I've ever endured in my entire life. I mean, I'm only 26, so I'm sure there's more. But it was horrible, and it was like I lost so much weight because I was so stressed. Like I would forget to eat. Like it was insane. I knew nothing.
What was the stress? Like what were you stressing about?
I literally knew nothing, and I was like, how am I going to make sales? I don't know how to code a website. I don't know how to source a product, how to design a label. Where do you get labels printed? Where do you get the container? Where do you get the product? So, wow, it was a lot. But that's kind of the thing. Like, I'm so grateful that I kind of went through that period, because now, like, everything seems like a breeze. Now I'm like, I could do
Mm.
anything. Like, I endured the horrible, worst things in my life that, like, now I could do literally anything. But that was kind of the reason why I was like, okay, I need to get financially educated, because I don't ever want to go back to that spot where I would literally
Mm.
cry like twice a day for like a year. Like, rent was coming up, I had bills due, and I was like, I haven't made a sale in like a month. It was really scary. So it was kind of just like, I don't ever want to be illiterate and be sad.
Doug. That's our producer, Doug.
Oh, hey, Doug. So yeah, it was more so like, I don't ever want to cry again for twice a day for a year.
Do you still have the skincare business?
Yeah. I run them both full time. I mean, now I've hired people to help me for both of the businesses, the finance and skincare. But
And how long ago did you start that?
this was in 2019.
Okay.
So really not that long ago, yeah.
Um,
Should we tell her that it's a roller coaster? It doesn't always stay up top.
Oh my God. I'll tell you it's a
I was gonna say I still cry sometimes twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day.
It's necessary. But the thing is, I would never trade it for anything. Like,
Yeah, I think,
ever.
the interesting thing here is, I guess I'm trying, like, I guess I'm relating it to building. And I remember starting the business, and I don't need a source of, I did need a source product. I needed a source material.
Right.
And it was like, what supplier do I need to go to? And I guess it's very similar in that. But you just had this knack that you wanted to go into skincare for whatever reason, right? That was where your interest was.
Yep.
And there's a lot of stress going into it, especially when you're not basically building a plan while having an income in the background, right?
Yep.
Where it's like you're going into this like full-fledged, hey, I need to make this work. And so when you were at this coffee shop and met this gentleman, you guys start chatting about investing. What I assume you basically said, hey, this is my business, this is what I'm doing, and he was just kind of a mentor as far as, all right, you need to be deferring this or deferring that, or invest. Like, what were those conversations really centered around?
I mean, to be honest, we didn't really touch much on my own business. It was more so like, hey, you have like this opportunity to invest, because it was kind of like COVID time. It was literally right when COVID started. So like 2020, like January. So he was like, this is a really, really good time to invest. I invest, I like, this is my knowledge. This is what I have. This is my portfolio. And he's like, this is a really good opportunity for you. And I was like, I'm in it. But the thing is that like, I had already kind of invested. I just didn't understand the stock market. And my first investment, I want to say, was like 2018, 2017, like both in Bitcoin and in stocks. I just didn't know what I was doing. So when he came along,
sorry, why were you investing at that point then? If you didn't know it, where is it just like everyone says, put money in the stock market? All right, I'll put money in the stock market.
I did have a friend at FAU who was like an accountant, or not an accountant. He was a trader. Like he worked for like a big company. And so
Sure.
he was like, hey, like, this company is really great. I think you should invest into it. And I'm like,
Sure.
let's do it. Like,
Okay.
let's do it. So yeah, so that was kind of the thing. Like, I had invested before technically, and in Bitcoin, like I said, because it was kind of like the hype at the time for like a little second. And, yeah, and then he was just kind of like, this is what you can do. This is where you can put your money in. This is how the stock market works, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, this is amazing. I made quite a bit of money, like from, just learning from him and really taking his advice. Cause like I said, he really, really knew his stuff. A lot of the stuff, like even a stock that we would kind of discover together, like it would go up like 1,000%. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like these are insane companies. Obviously it was a huge, pump during the 2020, 21 time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm like extremely thankful. But I will say, like at some point, him and I kind of like lost touch, and then like I kind of like ran with everything that I knew and started to build more in that. So it's a mixture of both of us.
As far, so taking it from working with someone that's helping you invest to now creating content around tax strategy and money hacks, like can you bridge that? How do you bridge that? How did you bridge from there to today?
The thing is, like, it's a snowball effect. I mean, you guys own businesses, so like you kind of know, like once you learn one thing, you start to learn like a whole different thing. Like once I started to learn investing, I'm like, okay, great, how do taxes work? And then you learn taxes within investing, and I'm like, okay, great, how do taxes work within my business? And then you start to learn taxes within your, you know what I mean? Like it's just a snowball effect, and then you start to learn about like just different things, and then you're like, what other hack money wise can I learn? And then you just roll with it.
Where was most of this education coming from? Also social media?
Yeah, it would either get like, it would be like issues that I would have with my own business or questions
Sure.
that people would ask me. Like all of a sudden I'm starting to create this content, but like, let's say out of 100%, I knew 20%, right, at the time. And people would ask me these questions about taxes or about money hacks or about budgeting. And I'm like, I don't know. So I would literally then go off and like learn it myself, take hours out of my day or days and weeks and learn new things, and then start to create more content based on their questions.
Now that you kind of are established, well, modestly
well,
established, right, as a business and everything else, looking back
yeah.
on that, and you said that you were so clueless and you were crying twice a day.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing that you would have changed looking back on this? Or like what, the way that you started your business and your operation and it was so overwhelming, now that you have the knowledge that you do, what would you have done differently?
I think I would have at least made a bigger nest egg for myself. Like I literally was in this marketing job and then like quit. Like
Yeah.
there was no plan. Like there was no plan B. It was like, you have to make this happen. But at the same time, it's kind of hard because imagine if it didn't go that way and I did have a nest egg and I did have another job, then it's like, would it be as successful? Would it have taken longer for me to get the business started? You know what I mean? So like, it's hard to change anything. But if I could, essentially, it would be to have kind of like a bigger savings account.
Yeah, and Nick and I have that discussion with people all the time where it's like, I think I'm ready to make the move. And it's, you ask them why. Like, you're still so
Right.
young. Why do you want to go off on your own right now? When you have a decent paying job, you have time, that you often don't have when you own a business yourself. And it's like, why not learn on somebody else's dime? Like, at least learn some of the business, more of the trade, take time to learn about investing and all of that stuff while you have the time. Because once you start that business, it's very overwhelming. And then to try and learn about all of this stuff after the fact, like, yeah, you learn it because you have no choice but to learn it. It's, it's like feast or famine, swim or you're going to sink. But it's like, why not work for somebody else for 5 years and save some money and learn all of this stuff and then start that business where you do have some money saved up? You're not as pressed and pressured and you have a decent amount of knowledge to go into this.
I completely agree. It's kind of like a 50-50 though at the same time, because I really do think it depends on someone's personality. Like I'm the type that I'm like, fuck it. Like I'm just going to jump into it and figure it out along the way. Or some people want to take the time out and be like, okay, I'll learn on somebody else's dime. So I think it really depends on someone's personality. I jumped into it and I was like, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that I know I would consider myself the same way. Nick is very much the same way. And it's like, it almost doesn't matter what trade or craft or profession you're in, you just have the personality type that like you're going to be successful. If you were in the food industry, you're going to be successful. If you were in the legal industry, just because you want to learn how to do things, you want to be able to answer the questions that ask you want to know why you're doing things. And I think that like you said, snowballs and builds that knowledge base, because you don't want to just be doing shit for the sake of doing shit and not understand why.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say like that really is, when it comes down to it with that personality type, if you're going to jump into something, you define success however you want, but ultimately you're going to go into it just, and have the perseverance to work through the issues, right? When the times are tough, it sucks and you're crying and you're losing sleep and you're losing weight. Like all of those things are very real in all industries, especially, but when you go off and to work for yourself and start a business, that you said something a couple minutes ago that I was going to ask is, you said that your skincare business you've hired people to help run that now, and that is when I look back, right? You talk about having a bigger nest egg. When I look back, I would have hired people sooner, because
Yes.
what I've realized is that I'm not going to code a website. And if when I came to that roadblock of I don't know how to build a website, I did the same thing. I was like, all right, I don't know how to do this. I got to learn how to build a website. I spent too much time learning that. Instead, I should have turned around and hired the guy that is really good at building websites. And and I think I want to say it was Jonathan Ward on our podcast that said this, and I could have that wrong. But I start like, why would if I'm going to sell a superior product, right? Or let's say I'm selling skincare and it's the best skincare in my opinion in the world, right? It's the most natural. It has whatever, all of the credentials of being the best. But I then turn around and I go work with a label shop that gives me a B+ label. You can't do that. You have to be on the same exact
Wavelength.
point. Yeah, wavelength. Like it's we've talked about from builders' perspective, and a lot of our audience are builders. So like it's the same thing as being a general contractor and saying that you are a high-end luxury home builder and you are selling at a premium price, millions of dollars, and then you tell them how you're going to build them the best house. It's the best house, in the market. They buy it, and then you turn around and find the cheapest painter, the cheapest plumber, the cheapest electrician, and that's very real in our industry.
Definitely.
And it's you just spent all this time selling the very best house, and now you're turning around and working with trying to find the cheapest price. That doesn't align. And that's what happens.
The thing is too, like essentially people like as consumers, like we can see through the bullshit. Well, like 100%, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure you walked into an apartment or maybe you've lived in an apartment or house or whatever that like it looked great on the outside, but the inside, like things are falling apart, or like you can tell that the cabinets are like really hollow or whatever. I don't know material like that, but like you can tell that like they're just not up to par. And I think as consumers, like, and what I really learned from owning like the skincare business, people can see right through BS. They can see when you're like selling them a really shitty product, but like at a really high price. So same thing with, building and materials and stuff like that. Like people can see right through it. So it's like, you're already spending the money. You're already like, just follow through with it and you're going to get so much of an ROI anyways. So.
When did you, I think that maybe it was on your Instagram page that you said that you lost one of your accounts after like a substantial following. Like when did you start all of this and creating content? And like I understand where it all started, but when did you start putting yourself out there and putting the content out there?
Honestly, it was literally, I want to say like March or April of 2020. So like I was teaching
right away
or making content as I was learning things myself. Cause that was like, it made it relevant. It was fresh. Everybody was kind of learning investing. So I was like, I'm learning about it too. So let me share what I have. So yeah. But then I did lose the account and it was tragic.
What account was that?
It was, well, at first it was the TikTok and then it was the Instagram. So knock on wood.
You lost both of them?
You lost the social media account.
I lost both of them at some points. Yeah. At different times. But ironically, it was around the time that like I made, and it was really not that long ago. It was like this year for both of the accounts. And ironically enough, obviously we have our own theories and stuff like that, but I was kind of touching on like very touchy subjects. Essentially, it was about, medical bills and like how to avoid paying them and how like loopholes, right, around medical bills and debt and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Definitely the dude. It was definitely the dude from the coffee shop. 100%.
He's like, you need to pay me.
Screw this. She stole all my content and now is putting it out.
So you just try to log in one day and it was gone?
Yeah, it was like you went against our, like this was TikTok. They were like, you went against our rules, blah, blah, blah. And it was like days, but like days on TikTok to not be on there and like to have, I think it was at like 100K or whatever during that time, but it was skyrocketing because I did like a series on medical debt and I think it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 videos and each of them would get like 10, 15, 8 million views. Like they were really, really big series. And so it was like, the thing is, like, at some point, you know, I've started to make a pretty good, decent living off of social media. So to have that income like completely stripped from you within like days, super scary. Super scary.
Did they give you a reason? Like,
It was,
I know you said
it was just because like
you went against guidelines.
Yeah.
But there was no like this specific video talked about this specifically. TikTok's unregulated, my understanding. So it's hard to get to the bottom of it. But what about Instagram?
Instagram, someone just tried to hack into it, and like they were really successful, and it was gone for I think like a week or two, and it took forever to bring it back. But then when I did get it back, because obviously I got both accounts back, I'm not a quitter. Like I literally was planning to like go to Instagram headquarters. Like I'm not the one. Like I have never been the one to just like.
This is gonna be great content. I'm gonna knock the door down.
I'm not like I'm not just like, oh, I lost it, time to start over. No, I'm fighting. Like I'm fighting. I'm seeing you outside. I think it's the Albanian in me. I don't know, but it was someone hacked it, and it was success. And they successfully hacked it for a few weeks. And then after that, like when I did get it back, all the content, anything that I posted for like 2 months, were at like 0 engagement. So it was like super just like, ugh.
It was like starting over.
Yeah.
How
it was awesome.
Are you doing a lot of marketing for your skincare business?
I do, but they're just separate accounts. So like,
sure.
I don't really mingle them. But yeah, definitely like we have TikTok, we have Instagram, Pinterest ads, things like that. It's in stores. So there's its own marketing there too.
So in 2020, how did you decide to split your time between these two things that you're basically starting at the same exact time?
To be honest, the skincare, which is called Eros. So Eros was like the main focus because I was making money from Eros. Like that was my business. It was my child.
Yeah.
The finance stuff was like more of a hobby. And it was a hobby, honestly, until like this year, before like all these really big brands kind of started to come and were like, hey, like we want to partner with you. And then it was almost like both businesses are competing with each other in terms of like money, essentially, and like profit and stuff. So it was really crazy.
The side of education, and it's something I can relate to, and I know Tyler can as well, is you're talking about educating as you're learning.
Yes.
And we are huge promoters of that, especially in our industry where, I'm constantly investing in self-knowledge, and I take that and immediately give it back, where it's like I'll go to an event that I'll spend a lot of money to go to. I'll soak in that knowledge, and then we'll turn around and we'll put it on the podcast, or it'll be at an event that we throw, or we talk about it openly, on social media. And I think that a lot of people think that they need to have it all figured out to teach. and you're shaking your head, and you're like, nope, definitely not. Like I'm proof. But that's what we, the Modern Craftsman, stand for. It's we want to be promoting good knowledge. We want to be, and doing it live, doing it as we're learning. We want to be teaching as we're learning, because everything is changing so quickly, day after day. And you also said how it's fresh in your mind, where it's like you just learned it. It's like, and then you can create content out of it. The fact that you were able to, basically take that and now have it become its own business is awesome. Like that's congratulations.
Thank you.
What for our audience, which I'm sure most of our audience is like, listen, dude, I'm never going to create a financial TikTok or make videos on TikTok.
It applies to everything though.
It does. But just, for high level, what has your social media done as far as, what brands are you working with, and like, and how substantial is the money in social media influence?
So I would say that in finance, I don't do like the beauty stuff or whatever, but I do know that has like a lot less monetary gain there. However, in finance, because you are working with like financial institutions, you know, like these are really big companies and like they have money, they're financial institutions. So it is more of like a win there for the finance world. So I have worked with so far like Wells Fargo, Credit Karma, TurboTax, MasterCard, like some of the big ones, Rakuten, if you guys have heard of that one, Ibotta, if you've heard of that one as well. So a lot of these really big companies, like they will literally just reach out to me and just be like, hey, this is what we want.
Hold on 1 second. Is that Tyler? You hear that?
It might be your mic. Where's your mic?
Was it rolling away?
It's kind of rattling a little.
Oh,
no, that was maybe on your shirt.
What
was it?
It's my little fan.
Oh.
It's really hot in Florida at all times, and I have like this glass like wall. So that was me. So I'll turn it off.
All right. You're good.
Sorry. So a lot of these really big companies will kind of just come up to me, essentially email me and, you know, let me know like this is the type of content that we would like. They'll either give you a script or they'll be like, hey, you have full creative whatever. And that's kind of that. Like they kind of but I will say, like, as you get bigger on social media and as you have engagement, like that's really, really the most important part. The money is there. Like, if I can give you like numbers, essentially, like the standard, essentially, like what people go by is $100 per 1,000 followers that you have on social media. So if you have, 500,000 followers, you can say $5,000 for like a post or whatever. But the thing is, like, it's really not as little as that, because there's so much that goes into it. There's engagement, you can negotiate. They want a link in bio, you add more. If they want to use it for ads, you add more on top of the price that you want to set. So there's so much. And then you've created content and then they want to reuse it, for months and years. So then they pay you like residuals, royalties. So there's a lot.
But when you started this, I guess it's just like anything else. Did you have a network of people that you were turning to where it's like, hey, I'm approached with this offer. What would you, or was it just, because I feel like that's what we ran into. And I kind of, I don't know. I don't know anything about the finance social media world, but to me, it would be similar to ours where they were like behind in getting involved with influencers.
Okay.
Or like, I think that there's a lot of other businesses and industries that like hit the ground running and understood the value of partnering with people like yourself or influencers. And I think that the construction industry was definitely like a couple years behind other people. One, I guess, did you find that to be the case with the financial industry? Because I could see a lot of people like with traditional like the businesses that you're dealing with be like, no, that's not how we market, that's not how we advertise, we're not going to pay this person that amount of money. So I guess that's kind of part one. And then two would be, when all of this came to fruition, who did you turn to steer you in the right direction?
So part one to that is essentially, when it does come to the finance institutions that like will reach out to me or something related to finance or whatever, to be honest with you, I think they're very, very smart, because they started to realize, like, why am I, right, going to create a commercial for $3 million when I can literally reach out to these influencers who have so much reach. They have so much more of a niche. So like if I'm finance, other people that want to know about finance are going to follow me. So their target audience is like directly reached through me and like other financial people. However, if you put out an ad or whatever as a commercial, you're going to hit random people everywhere. So with the finance institutions, 100%, they were not, taking the slow road on that one at all. Once my account started to reach like 100K, when I tell you, my emails were like flooded with like just incredible companies. A lot of the times, they will try to like find like little like loopholes and be like, hey, we're going to pay you $100. And you're just like, no.
Yeah.
They're going to try. But for the most part, it's been the most amazing experience with like probably 90% of them. And then this number two to that, who did I kind of turn to be honest with you? Literally nobody. I didn't know anybody at the time, like who was doing like influencer stuff. I hate that word, but creating content. I I didn't know anybody. And plus, like, you know, we always have this weird stigma and taboo about like talking about prices. Like, hey, how much do you charge? How much do you charge? You know what I mean? But I did kind of start making some friends within content creation. And like, I would ask like, hey, how much do you charge? You know, you have 200K. What is your price type of thing? So
I mean, that has to be so helpful, especially when you're just starting this. And I can relate that to what we do as a business. And yeah, like geographically, there's always going to be differences. Your market, the type of work, you know, it's not always apples to apples. But Nick's in Boston, I'm in New Jersey. You know, 10 years ago when we met, when we were just establishing businesses, being able to be like, hey, what is this job looking like as far as pricing goes for you when you don't have the network of people that you can turn to was amazing, because it's like you're either able to justify what you're doing or you can turn to somebody for advice to steer you in the right direction, or they could be like, you're leaving a lot of money on the table right now, which I feel like we also did with social media for a long time, where it's like, wait, you did that for how much? Like you could get twice that, 3 times that. And we didn't realize that for so long. But then establishing these connections within the industry, I think, is very helpful for us.
Well, when you guys started, and I'm going to ask you a question, I'm going to throw it back. But when you guys started essentially kind of being in like the construction world, and, you know, you said that you started, you know, pricing things out, like, would you say that you did kind of have an idea of what the prices would be because of the fact that like you could compare to other construction companies?
As far as building or from
building, yeah,
content?
Yeah, like you could, yeah, in terms of like building and construction, things like that.
I would say that the way I can answer that, and that most people probably think of it, is time and material. Okay. Meaning like, how much time is this going to take me to do? And then how much is material? And if they're, you know, some will be more savvy than that and say, okay, but I also need to make a markup on that material. And I heard on Google that 20% is normal. Gotcha. So I'm going to charge 20%. And then, you know, as someone does start understanding business finances, they realize that, you know, okay, if I'm doing $1 million a year and I'm spending, you know, $100,000 a year in overhead that I can't bill to a job, well, 10% of that 20% is going to my overhead. So now I'm only left with $100,000. And, you know, I'm taking a lot of risk for, you know, I think that your fan just blew again. Oh. Is that you? No?
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's so weird. It sounds like a bowling ball rolling away.
Really? I don't hear it at all.
Nick,
my AC's on too now. I don't know if that's from it.
No. I think you did.
It was just like a one-time thing. Yeah. It's Nick. It's very similar to what you said, Ajla, when you first started, right? Like, when I first started in business, when Nick first started in business, the jobs were simpler, right? So it's like, you built that cabinet for that, how much? You did that bathroom for how much? You did that kitchen. And as you grow and things get more, you know, you start hiring people. You start increasing your overhead. There's different costs associated with the jobs that you're doing. There's different materials. There's different risks. All of that stuff, like, if you're growing with somebody, you can still bounce all those same things off of them. So like, it starts very simple and it starts small. And then as things get more complicated and more detailed, you're able to kind of grow. It's this very slow organic growth. So it's the same thing. Like, you're just constantly learning and constantly evolving. So I can always turn to Nick and be like, hey, it's not necessarily the price for job, but like, what's your overhead with one employee? What was your overhead with two? Like, you learn this stuff. And a lot of times in our industry, there's not a formula. There's not a business model that you follow. So having somebody kind of by your side who's gone through that already and experienced those hiccups and that growth and everything else, you are able to compare to them. And then it turns into not like, hey, how much did this cabinet job cost you? But like, what are you paying on a percentage of taxes for your employees for the year? And you start to learn. And then I think, you know, like I said, when you're 7-10 years into business, you start finally figuring out how to make money, because now you're accounting for things that you just never accounted for. and you're able to grow your business to a way that it's actually sustainable and you're pricing it correctly, whatever structure that may be, time and material cost plus lump sum, but you start to sort out the more like in-depth complexities of pricing construction that's not just as simple as like, how much did this job cost you?
Definitely. 1000%. I can totally resonate with that. The thing is, at least in my industry, like there is really no overhead. Like when you think about it, like it's really hard, you know, obviously like the finance stuff has become like its own LLC in business. So it is kind of hard to come up with like, you know, like tax stuff, like how, like what am I going to spend on? Like what are
I
my
can help you. I can help you.
Yeah, because I mean at this point, like it is kind of hard, and like I've had a lot of YouTube friends, you know, who like kind of run into the same issue. They're like, we just keep buying iPhones because, or like just random really expensive computers, because like there really is not a lot of overhead for like content creation. It's crazy, but I definitely figure it out in that department. For sure. There's always write-offs. There's always write-offs we can write off.
You know, I think like it's let's talk about write-offs for a second, because this is where
they're pretty much free. It's just free.
If you've seen Schitt's Creek, there's that famous like
write-off. It's free.
It's a write-off.
I love when people
pays for
say
it? The write-off
that.
people.
It's just a write-off.
Yeah, but that is like the typical conversation where it's like, just buy it and write it off. It's like, it still costs money.
Yeah.
Like you still actually have to afford to pay for it.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, if you have to buy a vehicle at the end of the year to help offset some of your tax liability, you still have to buy the vehicle.
Or you have to have that money to be able to buy the vehicle.
Yes.
Right. Or money or credit or whatever it is. You know, you still have to be able to afford that. But my point, I guess, is that, you know, this is one area that I think we, and a lot of people in business, don't spend enough time fully understanding it. Where it's like, oh, you know, everyone just wants my receipts and my all, you know, keep track of all of my expenses, and we don't, you know, early on we don't make it a priority. I mean, I certainly did not. I'm speaking for myself. There was, you know, probably 5 or 6 years that, you know, at the end of the year I would hope that I had most of the stuff, and I was like, oh, I'll never get audited, and I did get audited.
Oh wow.
I got I got audited and they wanted everything, and I was like, I don't have everything. I'm just being real with you. Like I can, and they gave me a list of what they needed, and I was able to fulfill 30% of it. And thankfully,
you weren't even close.
I wasn't even close.
So what happened? I've never been audited, so I don't. What happens after that?
This particular situation, it was an issue with it was an issue with my wife's tax return from when we were dating. And since we were now filing together, it flagged. I don't know. It cost me a few $1,000s, but it was just, I'm laughing because I'm blaming my wife, and everyone's like, of course it's her. But my point, thankfully, like the guy at the IRS was very helpful, and he's like, listen, man, I understand where you're at. This has nothing to do with your business. I just need you to fulfill these things, and I can make this go away. You're still you'll have a liability, but it won't be that big. So, but either way, like now I'm on their quote unquote list, right? So they're watching it. But again, my point is, you know, if I can give advice, that's one of the things that I wish I hired early on. Is someone to run the finance side of my business. I have a CFO now. She has a team. You know, we don't miss a single receipt, and we do probably somewhere close to $200,000 in spend per month, and that's a lot of spend. And that's, you know, it probably more than that at times, but that's a lot of spend, and that's a lot of transactions. And that's spread across, you know, checks, which are a little bit easier to track, and then a dozen credit cards. And every single transaction, it has to be entered into our system, because if it doesn't, on Monday, I tell this story before, but on Monday morning, there's an automatically generated report from the system that emails to me that says, these are the people that didn't submit receipts last week. And no one wants to be on that list.
I don't want to be on that list.
Right, where it's like, hey, and it'll capture everything. It's like, hey, Tim, what's the $4 at 7-Eleven for? He's like,
wow.
Oh shit, it's like, but my point is like, all of this stuff helps, helps at the end of the year, where it's like the tax liability and is decreased because you are accurately tracking it.
Yes.
You are accurately keeping your books.
Definitely.
And I know that sounds elementary, and a lot of people would say that this is elementary, but it's the number one thing that you can immediately fix without any strategy. It's like the first thing you got to do is just have your books clean. And all that means is making sure that everything is going in and you're accurately tracking, whether it's a job cost or an overhead cost.
Do you know it's so much easier because we have like systems, right? Like what's the QuickBooks? Like there's so many things, like definitely as you're starting out, because I didn't really keep on top of my books either. But the thing is, like, I don't want to give an excuse to like business owners who start out, but at the end of the day, like, you are worried about so many things that like it is really hard to like stay on top of your receipts, and like you go buy a snack and you're like,
totally.
Oh my God, I have to write it off. You know what I mean? Like it is super, super, super hard in the beginning, but then you kind of figure it out.
I don't think you can write snacks off. I got in trouble for that.
It depends. I mean, if it's a business meal.
Well, if you were doing it, yeah, it's very true.
These receipts add up.
But that's the biggest issue with what we do is that we don't have a business mindset, so we're not really taking advantage of these things as well as we should, and we're so busy with the daily operations and tasks, and it's so chaotic and there's so many things going on that you don't prioritize how important the business end of things are. And if you don't have a healthy business, which should be very straightforward, even just at like a quick glance, you keep making excuses as to why you should still be in business. And there's a lot of people who just like every year in and year out should not be in business, and it's very simple, and they don't understand that because they're not putting the necessary time into doing that. I think that's a huge issue for us. But yeah, having, like you said, having the time to be able to itemize receipts and go through that, it's so hard when you first start out, but it's so important.
Yes.
It's arguably more important than like doing the work yourself, because if you're not tracking that, like you may be busting your ass to not make any money, or to not be profitable, or to not have a sustainable business.
And then it circles back on the fact that you said like your CPA, or was it you, or I don't know who said that, where like the CPA essentially like hadn't told you something that you had learned on TikTok or whatever. And that part really does blow my mind, because I also have learned so many things that like I just haven't learned in school, or like people that I paid to teach me things or whatever. Like, why? Like as a CPA, like why didn't you do this? Like that's your job. Or I have someone, like I have a really good friend who like owns an investment property, and the CPA like hasn't put that under an LLC, and it's like, but you get paid, like, even, you know what I mean? Like as a CPA, you should do that, number one, and number two, you also get paid for doing that work. So like, where's the discrepancy? Why is this not clicking?
I mean, do you think that you could chalk it up to them going through the motions and doing their job, and it's very similar to people in other industries and careers, where it's like they're not interested in being the best CPA as possible, like good enough is good enough? Like, I mean, if you're just one of those people that like you're not that overly ambitious and you don't want to learn everything, or you're just tired of dealing with the bullshit, like I think that there are a lot of them that don't want to put their neck out and go through the motions, and they have like their normal things that they flag and run through, and that's it.
Safe.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I actually also made like a recent video that like really, really popped off, where
popped off.
Was that really Gen Z of me?
Yeah. There's been a few Gen Z comments, but that's okay.
Oh no. Is it the TikTok lingo?
It's definitely the TikTok
I think I've only ever heard it's popping off. I didn't know you could use a past tense. It popped off.
Well, potato. But yeah, so it performed really well. And the video did I'm done.
Yeah.
Interview over. Podcast over. No, so basically the video did really well because it was about business owners, like, a family essentially who has a business and they also have kids, and you can employ your kids, and there's like this really awesome tax loophole that you can take where you can deduct up to like 12,000 whatever off your taxes. Your kids also gets that free and clear, no taxes, and then you could put that into the Roth IRA because now they have earned income, and then they could start earning essentially like compounding interest into the Roth IRA. So I did that video and it got like millions and millions of views across like whatever platform. And it was just so insane, the amount of business owners that would like comment or tag other business owners, their friends or whatever, and be like, how did we not know this? Like, we're talking about like millions, like tens of millions of dollars that like their kid could literally profit off of tax free in years to come. Like, I'm shocked. Or they'll be like, how, my CPA has never told me about this. Like, or I'm taking this video to my CPA and I'm like, all these CPAs are going to hate me. They're never going to want to work with me. But
this is
shocking.
It wasn't your video, but this is the video that I'm talking about. This strategy about the kids. And I think I sent it to you, Tyler. Because I think there's an age limit. I think it's 8 years old.
It's until they're like, I want to say in the teens, but I can't.
No, you can't start doing it until they're 8. I believe it's 8.
Essentially, like, for example, if it's a baby, like they could be like a baby model. So like there is ways, you know what I mean?
Well, okay. The 8 years old came from they can physically do something at the office. Yeah. So there has to be some sort of like, for instance, the way it was explained to me is like, you can have an 8-year-old file papers. Right? Like you have to have them do something. So yes, technically a baby model, like for, hey, this baby has skin lotion all over it.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. And that's what I reached out. I was like, why, I have 3 kids. Like why am I not taking advantage of this and doing something good for them?
Exactly.
Nick, every one of your kids can't be model.
I'll see which one can.
What do you mean?
No, but Reed definitely can file papers.
Did they?
So my kids are 1, 4, and 6, or will be 6. So but it's on our list of like when she turns 8, she will start taking advantage of that and so on and so forth. But it's helping your tax liability at the end of the year, and you're setting your kid up with a Roth IRA to compound interest and have money growing in the bank tax free.
Right.
And go ahead.
I ran the numbers one time because someone on Instagram like had asked me. They were like, "Oh, I want to open one for my son, and he's 2 years old." Again, this would be like a baby model type of situation, and they were like, what would like. How much would they gain essentially? So I ran the numbers, and at 2 years old, if that child opened up a Roth IRA and until 59 and a half, they would literally walk out of life basically with about $14 million in like money tax free. And then they would only essentially have put in about 350,000 over like their lifespan. So 350,000 from 2 years old to 59 and a half, where you walk out, with 14 million about, like, that's insane.
Let me just make sure I understand that. So that's paying them $12,000 a year from the time they're 2 years old till when?
So essentially it would be $6,000 for the Roth IRA if they started it at 2 years old till 59 and a half when you can cash out.
They're maxing out their Roth IRA.
So you're putting $6,000 from the time you're 2 till the time you're 59 and a half.
Exactly. And you're cashing out about, it was like 13.7 million, but it would only take you about $350,000 over like 6,000.
No, I understand that. I think I'm thinking more of like, if you're going to think about what this means for your kid, it means that until they start earning or until you decide to pass that, hey, from like, hey, just so you know, since you were 2 years old, I've been putting $6,000 in this account per year. Hey, now you got your own job, you should be also putting the $6,000 there, whether the parent decides to do that or not. But my point is that it takes an annual commitment of $6,000 per year in effort to get that 14 million. Now, the craziest thing is, myself included, is that people don't do it because they want to figure it out first. And by the time, like, I'm 34, and it's like, I haven't set these up. I know I should be setting them up, but it's like, you get the whole like, oh, I should have done it when I was 2. But then it's like, well, sure, but you didn't, and you're 34, and you should do it before you're 35. Because the longer you delay it, yes, you're not going to make the 14 million. I get that, but my point is that oftentimes people may decide not to do it because they feel as though they missed their opportunity.
Yes.
And the opportunity continues to exist. It's just a smaller opportunity. But listen, any compounding interest is compounding interest, and and effectively is profit 100%. At the end.
So
it's free money essentially. Well, after you cash out, like
invested money, yeah.
Right.
What would you recommend, Ajla, for somebody, let's just say in the construction industry, if they don't have a good accountant right now, they're not investing money, like what's the first move for somebody to
get going? Are they a business owner or just anyone?
I mean, either. I just like in general, I think that a lot of people that we deal with, business owners working for somebody, they don't know the first step to take.
Okay.
To either start investing. Yeah, like anything. It's like, well, my parents don't know I don't know anyone. Like, where's the first call to get going with a financial plan?
Okay. So these are the steps that I would take. Not financial advice. You always have to put that disclaimer in there.
Yeah.
But the steps that I would take essentially would always be, number one, to gain knowledge. And what I would do is I would watch like endless amounts of YouTube videos because I don't really like reading financial books. So I would watch YouTube videos. Again, content creation, like this is kind of why we're here, right? Like it's big. You can learn things for free. You could always take a course. I wouldn't like love it, for example, but you could also do that. The second thing that I would do, you could also try to find like a mentor. Also, not just like everywhere. You can't really find them around like street corners, but I would kind of educate yourself through either books or like videos and, courses and stuff. The second part is definitely to figure out your finances in terms of like, how much do you make? What is your fixed budget? What are your fixed expenses? And then budget from that. Let's say you have left over $500 from every, expenses, entertainment, whatever. You have $500 left over. Figure out, okay, 30% of this or 40% of it, I'm going to put towards savings. And then, the rest, I'm going to put it in my checking. And then the rest of that, maybe 20%, I'm going to put into stocks and investments. And then literally just like go, like, just like from what you learned, what you budgeted, go invest it, like do it. That's it. Yeah, it's really, really easy.
It's so easy right now, right? Like open a credit card and track your expenses that way. Like live off of that credit card for a year, pay it off every month completely. Don't accrue any interest, pay it off. But you can, at the end of the year, get a pie chart of where, like if you don't have QuickBooks and anything, a business owner, not like live off that credit card, you can log online and it'll tell you what you spent your money on and like establish some sort of baseline budget where it's like, my house cost me this much, taxes are this much, this is what we spent at restaurants, this is what we spent at the movies, and figure out what you made in a year. And like, you don't even have to do it yourself.
There's
Tyler,
actually,
movies isn't even on my list.
What'd you say, Nick?
I said movies isn't even on my list. I thought you were going like restaurants and Target, because that's mine.
I mean, that's probably Rachel's. Yeah. Target's definitely on there.
I hate Target so much. So what I was going to say, because I just reminded myself about the Mint app. So it's like it's a free app essentially where like you link all your accounts, your checking, credit card, whatever, even like your loans, if you have student loans, like you link everything there and it tracks those things for you. And you could even budget, you can set like $200 budget for entertainment a month or whatever. And it'll send you notifications like, hey, Ajla, you're over the 200 limit. So like definitely recommend that app. It's free, so anyone can download it. It's a really good one.
And it is interesting how few people understand what they spend their money on in a year.
Oh my
And
God,
like,
yes.
or even how much that is. And
Yes.
another little word of advice would be to start figuring out those budgets and spending and whatever system you're going to use to do so, hopefully while you're single, because I think going into a relationship or a marriage knowing that is way easier than like 5 years into your marriage going to your wife and be like, we're going to put you on a budget. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't work out so well.
Oh no. I mean, honestly, it's even like these little steps. Like that's really where you start is like, that's where it snowballs. Even turning on your credit card notifications, right? Like every time you make a transaction, you immediately get a text or an email. Like you start to see like, holy shit, I spent like $50 today on like nothing. You know what I mean? So
That's actually a great tip. When you are notified about stuff, it makes you like
aware.
I forget it. It makes you aware, and I think it was Grant Cardone that said this, but he had said like he looks at every single one of his bank accounts every day.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, damn, that's. I mean, sometimes I remember not looking at it because I didn't want to know. And I recently turned on notifications that I get a weekly recap, like, hey, here's your account standing. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing it, and it's exactly what you said. And again, I feel like a lot of this is elementary when I say it out loud, but it's that notification of like, hey, here's what your account looks like today. And it's like, man, why is it down from last week? Oh, why is it, it went up last week, or my Amex and my Chase are both connected to my phone. So every time there's a transaction, I'm like, oh, man, that coffee was $9.
Or you could even set your credit card to like, if you reach a certain like limit, essentially, like I don't know what I have mine on, but it's like, hey, Ajla, you've spent $2,000 or whatever, like so far. And like you get a notification when you reach that point.
I don't need my credit card telling me I shouldn't buy expensive coffee.
Yeah, I feel like I'd like to see your Starbucks bill in a month.
You know what? I'm going to pull it up.
Nick's.
My coffee's stupid. I only drink one a day, but.
At Starbucks every day?
Oh, I mean, at least Starbucks, yeah. Can I pull that up real quick? I don't know if I can organize it. I will if I can.
Are you like against making it yourself? Is it the convenience?
Yeah. It's convenience.
I don't even know if it's like convenience. I mean, I guess you could get like a super high-end coffee maker for what you spend in a year.
I mean, my routine in the morning is I wake up and I'm out of my house within 10 minutes. So my kids are sleeping, my wife's sleeping. I put my shoes on downstairs and I leave and I go to the gym.
Brush your teeth?
Nope. I brush my teeth at the gym. I literally do not brush. Swear to God. I don't even.
On a podcast.
What? People at the gym think I have stinky breath. Whatever.
You need to have a separate savings account for the dentist.
Yeah, he's saving money on
my dentist.
water.
I was there last week, and they said my teeth are great. I don't even know how to find. How do I find out? Can I organize? I want to.
How much you spend on Starbucks?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if it's. I don't stop and get coffee every day. I make coffee every morning. But there's days where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go get a coffee and I'm completely fine with it. And it's like a mental health. Like I'm going to spend that money on it. And I'm fine with that.
I mean, do you remember, sorry to cut you off. Do you remember like the whole wave essentially on social media? It was like, oh, all the millennials and Gen Zers like will never be able to afford a house because they're buying, avocado toast and Starbucks coffees. Like the thing is like there is some truth to it, but like there really isn't as well. Like if you go to Starbucks every day, but your ROI of that coffee is like, whatever, 50% because it makes you more efficient and stuff. Like, okay, makes sense. But if you're, a college student and you have like $50 to your name and you're going to Starbucks buying coffee every day, reevaluate things.
Exactly.
Know what I mean?
It's not like you're like going to buy cigarettes every day and smoking a bunch of cigarettes. But yeah, I think that like the whole coffee thing is a treat, and I'm not against that. But it's definitely not like a routine for me where I go to Starbucks every day. But if I do go get coffee, it's probably I don't drink fancy coffee, but Starbucks coffee is kind of expensive.
It is.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
It changes. I get like the same thing. I'll just get black coffee, and I feel like the price changes at different Starbucks and like week to week.
It's per.
And
can't
that's
do
like
it.
the cheapest thing you can get.
Yeah, and it's always changing. Like I go in there and I expect it to be a certain, and it's like it's changing by cents every time I go in there.
I changed recently, so it's like $7 for like a venti cold brew, right, or something like that. But now I do a double shot in it.
Now it's
so
like
now it's $1 per shot. So it's like I want the big jolt of caffeine in the morning. I can't organize by Starbucks, but my 3 top spends are food and drink, groceries, and shopping.
For business?
No. This is personal.
You might want to check into that.
No. Business is all like merchandise. But I did reload my Starbucks card this morning with $100. So
you get 2 weeks.
At least you're getting the rewards.
Yeah, I'm getting. I get a free coffee.
Yeah, did you hear that they're doing Tuesdays like half off of coffees or whatever?
No.
Yeah, I found that out after I bought my coffee this morning.
What is it?
It's like a deal for. I don't drink coffee, but like it's like you get half off every Tuesday in like July off of like coffee.
If you have the rewards or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll see if I can figure it out and I'll share it later. But I mean, you're absolutely right about like. Listen, there's nothing wrong with buying avocado toast or expensive coffee if you have the means to do so. I wouldn't buy Starbucks coffee if I was in the background. I couldn't buy groceries for my family, right? Like that.
But this coffee's mighty good.
Yeah, the coffee. Yeah.
Sorry, kids.
You asked the question.
I'm sorry, but you're hungry.
It's stupid, and I totally understand. Like when I do buy coffee at home, it's cheaper. And I finally found a cold brew that I like, but then the Wandering Bear.
I've heard of this one.
It's on Amazon. Oh yeah, I found it on TikTok.
Is it coming like cans?
Stupid ad. No, it comes in like a box of wine.
Oh.
See, the only annoying part is that for the last 2 glasses, you got to take the bag out and squeeze it out.
Oh. Just
I'm like, you guys got to figure that out.
Is it reusable? Why?
No, have you ever had boxed wine?
No.
I've never had boxed wine.
You've never had boxed wine?
I don't drink wine. I don't like it.
Nobody likes boxed wine.
Yeah, it's just.
I don't like wine in general.
Well, it comes in like a bag. So like if it's a picture a cardboard box, and if you open the box, there's a bag with a spout on it.
Okay.
And then when that bag gets like, deflated, like the liquid kind of spreads out and it just doesn't drain out very freely because there's no like vent.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. So then you just got to squeeze the coffee out. But it's actually really good. It's really good coffee. I cannot figure out how to get it on a subscription because the last thing I want to do is order it like every 2 weeks. I just like send it automatically and I'll never go to Starbucks again.
I wonder. See, I don't like cold brew coffee that you buy and it's in the fridge and it's pre-mixed.
Chameleon.
Dude, I think I had some one time and I was wondering, I had this epiphany and I never looked into it after that. But do they just make it taste like coffee, like engineer it to taste like coffee, but it's not actually like cold brewed coffee?
That's what McDonald's does.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of them don't taste like even if you buy the Starbucks ones, it doesn't taste like coffee. And I wonder if it's just like they just have stuff that tastes like coffee.
I only know this because of Shark Tank, but because there's a guy on there that had like some sort of thing, like a filter system or whatever. But the reason coffee at a coffee shop typically tastes better is because of the filtration system.
Yeah.
Because of the water that they're using. But going back to the stuff you buy at like Whole Foods, right? I'm like, this stuff lasts me 2 days. And I didn't realize you're supposed to mix it 50-50 with water.
Oh, no.
So I was like, I'll mix it. So I mixed it. And I'm like, now it tastes like dirty water.
Oh,
it tastes better. It tastes better straight. You have no idea what we're talking about because you don't drink coffee.
Have you never drank coffee?
No. I have. It's just not my thing.
Oh,
I don't really drink alcohol. I don't smoke. Like, I'm just living life.
Same. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke, but I drink coffee.
We all
Yeah.
I'd
have
probably be healthier if I did smoke and drink with the amount of coffee that I drink.
Wow.
Yeah, coffee's. I mean, I just drank another one, so
I'm drinking coffee right now.
an espresso because we went through 7 different coffee machines
my
to
God.
find something I like. But going back because we've totally digressed here. But the budgeting is real from a personal and a business perspective, and that's something that again I didn't do for a long time in business. Frankly, it was probably only 2 years ago where we sat down and actually looked at what we spent. Where it's like I had the record of it, I would look at my P&L, but I never looked at it and said and audited it. Where it's like, hey, why did you spend $15,000 in February in marketing? What was that for? And then I looked at it and it's like, I would never do that again. Let's cancel that.
Right.
The other thing, the whole Truebill ads I see constantly, it's like cancel all those subscriptions that you don't know you have anymore.
Yes.
So I ran a report in my business, and we had 24 different softwares that were renewing throughout the year, and I was like, we don't use them, and some of them were. I had one that was $2,100 a year
That you didn't
and I
use
was
at
like,
all?
that we didn't use.
Wow.
But it was a one time. The thing is, it's one time a year. It's not every month,
Yeah.
so it's not this reoccurring thing that shows up. It's once a year. The reoccurring ones are easy to spot because it's every single month. But $2,100, it's like, and then and it's this one time thing. It shows up, you pay it, and you forget about it because it's off your mind.
Yeah.
Where it's like
they almost do that on purpose. Like, have you seen those parts where they're like, oh, pay $20 a month or pay 18 or whatever, like 180, whatever it is, like for the whole year, and you always choose the annually because it's like less, but you forget about it.
It's less, but they know that they're gonna the retention rate is longer.
Exactly.
So let's talk. I want to know what is top of mind as far as strategy. What are your money hacks that you're learning right now? And something just like let's rattle some off. I'd love to understand, like, or even better, some of the things that you've learned that have been the biggest movers for you. And I know you touch on a lot of things. I know we can keep the medical stuff aside, but from a business perspective, you've talked a lot about different strategy in business. Like, what are some of the things that you have learned that have made the biggest impact in your business?
Okay. A few being, I think the very first, like, top 3 that I would say, and we kind of touched base on it, is kind of finding like help. So that's definitely like create a budget for that, because the ROI for someone helping you is insane. Mm-hmm. You cannot do it yourself. That's definitely what I learned. The second part to this is when it does come to spending, like, business money and stuff, like, personally, I have learned to live on so little money that, like, I rarely touch my business money. And of course, you have owner's draws and, you pay yourself type of thing, but it is like the bare minimum. And most of the time, if I am paying myself, like, that money is literally sitting in my checking account anyways, and I'm not doing anything with it. I think this is where, like, a lot of people kind of get caught up. Like, they make a little money in business and they're like, I want to spend it. And you can spend it, but spend it back within the business because it's going to come back to you tenfold. And then thirdly, I will say, when it does come to taxes and stuff, like, finding these loopholes, like, literally look up your own situation, like, legitimately Google, like, single male working in healthcare, has a side business, whatever. And, like, you find loopholes within that. Or you find, all of a sudden you get a ton of discounts, right? Like, there's so many things that you can do. Or like family of 4 with a business, like, employ your kids. So, like, you find these little, like, loopholes that literally pertain to yourself, and they will save you thousands when it comes to taxes. And of course, always, like, have some type of business. Even if you're a W-2 or whatever, like, you always have some type of side hustle, have an LLC, so you do get these write-offs. Like, W-2 employees always get taxed the hardest, right? So to be able to have these write-offs are essential, especially now with, like, inflation, because you really can't keep up. Like, you can't. I did a video recently where, we were talking about groceries, and groceries are up like 10% just like the last month. That's a big percent. If you're not getting 10% in a raise in your own job, you're losing. You're losing money every day. So right. Definitely always have some type of like LLC, always have some type of write-off, and write off your expenses, like whether it's like your phone, your internet, whatever, like find these loopholes.
So you're saying as an employee, if you're an employee, but I mean, you're saying as an employee, if you're working for someone,
yes,
you should also have
1,000%.
John Smith LLC, just so when you are doing a side work or some sort of side hustle, whatever it might be, you have the LLC as a formed to allow you to then be taxed as an LLC compared to as a W-2.
A lot of people, like, I'll do one-on-one sessions with a lot of people, or we'll have like a masterclass, and like the number one question is always like, but what do I do? Like, what do I open? I don't know a side hustle. I don't know, And my biggest thing is like, whatever you're doing at work, whether it's tech, whether it's building, whether it's finance, skincare, whatever, like literally do that same thing, have that same skill, but go outsource it. Like go like offer it to other people. You know what I mean? Like be like a 1099, be a contractor and do that same thing. Like you don't have to invent the wheel. Like whatever you're doing at work, great. Do it for somebody else, like in a separate thing.
And you also don't have, like, you have another job. That side business does not have to be an extremely lucrative, profitable business. Like, and that's kind of the point of that. Like, it doesn't have to be the best business in the world, but like it substantiates a lot of expenses. And go ahead.
My brain moves like 50 miles an hour. It's the content creation stuff, which I've gotten a lot, because like when you create content, like you just always, like your brain is like constantly switching and like watching and 30-second videos.
Oh yeah, it's super fun.
It's insane. And like I don't realize it until I'm like talking to somebody else and I'm like, okay, I'm on the next point. So excuse me. But I was going to say that the government actually like allows you, the IRS allows you to have like a side hustle that generates literally zero money or negative money for a good 1 to 2 years before they're like, okay, now you kind of have to start paying taxes. And now you do have to either make this a business where you make money because we need to get paid. Uncle Sam wants his part, or you have to shut down this business and it's considered a side hustle where it's not a business anymore. So you literally have 1 to 2 years where you can literally generate $0 and even continue writing off money, like take off write-offs and make zero and like negative money essentially, before the government comes and they're like, shut this down.
I mean, there's a lot of very big businesses that are in the red for many, many years.
Yes. Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not necessarily just a coincidence.
100%. Yes. The tax loopholes are meant to be found. And the crazy part is that like everybody knows about them, but they're like the top people, which you kind of touched on. But the people down here, like we don't know about them. We know about them because we like watch content or like somebody else decides to share it. But
so you said earlier that you hate the word influencer, which I find funny when you say that. I find it funny that you say that because influencer has taken this like weird, negative connotation behind it, but influencers have existed forever. They're not like just social media is what is making them more popular. Before that, people that were on TV were influencers and books. Like there's always been influence, but along the same lines of hating the word influencer, I almost hate the word tax or the phrase tax loophole, because it really isn't necessarily a loophole. It's just the way the tax law is written. And we interpret it as a loophole because we don't totally understand it. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, again, going back, like the tax law is so complex that we don't have the resources to fully understand it. So we rely on professionals such as CPAs, and hopefully find one that is, aggressive and wants to really understand and make sure that they're taking advantage of it. And the reason that we oftentimes call it a loophole, which makes it sound like it's this like super secret like society thing, it's not. It's unfortunately too complex for the average Joe that is already incredibly busy working 40 to 60 hours a week and catering to the family to sit down and understand how to do their taxes to end up with zero. That, it's, going back to what you're doing, it's like you're trying to kind of uncover some of the opportunities in order to justify not paying an enormous amount in taxes.
Correct. Which like you have the right to.
Right. And it's, and of course, like as an employee, if you're listening to this, you're dealing with W-2 and you're most likely either paying zero or getting some sort of refund. Mm-hmm. But here's an opportunity as an employee, because you're paying so much in taxes. As a business owner or someone that owns a business and you're listening to this, you've probably paid a fair share of taxes, and maybe you've had the CPA that tells you to go buy a truck or a piece of equipment at the end of the year, which that's not strategy. That's that's a reaction to a liability that you're about to incur, and that's typically starts with poor bookkeeping on your part. But I don't know where I was going with that point, but
I have a question for you, Ajla. Looking back on your college experience and going to college and having a marketing degree, how do you feel about that entire experience and the investment and everything else?
Oof.
Oof.
Yeah, that in itself kind of described it. I think, listen, I mean, I went to school in South Florida, right? It's very close to Miami. I live in Miami now, so it was a fun time. However, academically, wasted my time, wasted money, waste of resources, and I still have student debt. I mean, it's really nothing, like not a lot at all, but I still have student debt essentially that like it pisses me off to pay it off. So I wouldn't defer someone from not going, but I would say like, if I could do it again, and this is something like, I don't really have regrets, but if I could do it again, I would definitely have some type of business or some type of thing while I'm in college, because you have so much time. Like you think you have all these classes, all these exams, blah, 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 whatever. And unless you're like in the, medical field or like becoming, lawyer, whatever, that's totally different. You have, an insane amount of academic responsibilities. However, if you're not, you have the time. You have the time to open up a business. You have the time to, invest, learn about investing. You have the time. Like, stop making excuses. And if you don't have the time, stay up, sleep an hour less, every 3 nights and learn about it.
Yeah, I know growing up, we're a little bit older than you, but it was like, if you don't know what you want to do, get like a general business, go to college and get a general business degree. And which you would think would teach you this stuff. Yeah. And it's funny because, I mean, regardless of your major, you're going to be taking a fair amount of business courses. But I know my brother was a business major and uses nothing of what he learned. And it seems, even marketing, it seems like, if you don't necessarily know exactly what you want to be doing, you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you're going to go into this business field in college. And I do feel that there are a lot of better uses of your time and resources than that. And again, it's not to tell people not to go to college, but I don't think that people should be putting the weight on the general business degree and how important that is, when at the end of the day, you're going to be successful by how much you want it, by networking, really putting in the work and the drive and creating that network of people. That's what's going to make you successful coming out of whatever college that you may have gone to with a marketing degree. It's not going to separate you from anyone else
at all. And to be honest, it might even set you back, because you think you like have this degree and you have an MBA and whatever, but like anybody that I've ever met with an MBA degree, like they know nothing about investing. They know nothing about business. Like it is scary. I'm like, so what do you do? Like where are the life skills here? I don't understand.
And why isn't that part of the curriculum?
Right.
I mean, everybody kind of has their own theory, but essentially if you really kind of like date back to like who created education to begin with, you know, like I
Government.
said, especially, yeah, like especially, you know, free education.
This podcast is going to disappear.
Just like my
It's
social
true
media.
though, like student loans and
imagine,
everything
though.
else, and government funding and all of that, and education is a massive moneymaker for them.
Right. So
Um,
yeah, no, I mean, you know, we all need workers, and you know, school does produce a worker, and which is totally fine. However, you know, you just got to know kind of like to branch out and learn.
but is school producing those people? Like,
I think so, 100%.
You think that it's producing like a qualified worker?
No, I think it's producing someone that is designed to go as is designed to create an employee.
Yeah, but
Yes.
like, I don't feel as though school is shaping these people and setting them up for life to do so. I feel like it's like molding them to be all of this standard that they can go out and like it's supposed to put the tools and shape you to be able to have the tools to go out into the real world and be successful. And I don't know if it's doing that as much as just.
How about this? It's not teaching people how to be an employer.
Yeah,
And by default, they're ending up as an employee.
it is, but I don't know if school is shaping people to be like wonderful employees.
I'm not saying. I'm saying the default is that
I agree with
someone
both,
is an
yeah.
employee, and rather, you know, and they're not making a good nor bad nor any. Just completely like, hey, default, you're gonna go work for someone.
Yeah.
And if you want to go start your own business, you're on your own.
I think the biggest thing with schooling, if you're going to go to school, which is something that I did not do because it wasn't my personality at that point. I think that you can make a lot of connections and you can start developing your professional network. And I think if you look at it that way and step away from as much partying, and, you know, even kind of getting close with professors and people within the school system, I think that that's more valuable than coming out and, you know, taking like accounting 101, accounting 202,
Definitely.
like all of that crap. And it's really hard to see at 18 to 22 years old. But I think that would be something that school can offer that you wouldn't necessarily get if you had foregone like a college education.
It's
1,000%. Yeah.
to add to that. I listened to a podcast recently, and it was this kid that went to I forget what school, but an extremely prestigious college, like billionaire status. And, you know, let's remove the fact that, you know, his parents are probably billionaires and so on and so forth. But the point of them going to that school wasn't because of the academics. The point of going to that school was strictly so they were surrounded by other people with the same prestige and could network. So when they graduated, they built a stronger billionaire network. And it doesn't have to be that, where it's like if you go to, my point, Tyler, I'm agreeing with you, is the most important thing in school is creating connections with the right people that can ultimately give you the opportunities in life beyond. And the example of the prestigious school, like that is truly, like he talked in depth about why he went to that school, and it had nothing to do with the academics. It was only because he would be around other people that were either the same or even more prestigious, and would net him the opportunity to do whatever he wanted in life because he had the right connections and the right network.
Yeah, I guess I even think of like college, that their goal isn't to shape you and to develop you professionally, as they kind of like market themselves as much as them wanting to make money. Like somebody wanting you to come to their school versus another school, even if you're like a standout sports star, it's so that they better their team and bring more people into the stadiums and sell more jerseys and apparel. Like at the end of the day, it's for them to make more money. It's not necessarily to develop you professionally. And, you know, there's individual teachers and professors and counselors within these schools that do have that goal once you're there. But like the recruitment of these schools and these colleges is not necessarily for your best interest as it is for their best interest. And I think that's what's kind of disappointing to me.
I mean, you're like a walking dollar sign, essentially. Like as a student, like that's literally what you are. There's really nothing more, nothing less. I've studied kind of like, I love psychology. So I really love consumer psychology, and I have to kind of understand it, obviously, like in the field that I am in. But to piggyback on the fact that you said that like school doesn't really like create employers. They create employees. It's really interesting because I have learned in the consumer kind of like psychology background of it is that most of the time, like the system that we are put through in school, whether it's middle school, you know, high school, college, whatever, like it is kind of like a reward system, right? Like you have a lesson, you get homework, you get tested, and then you're rewarded, whether, you know, you learn the thing. Now, when you go out into the field of like working, that's literally how it is, right? Like you're working for somebody else and they're going to tell you, hey, Ajla, you're doing really great. Or like, hey, you know, you missed the mark or whatever. The thing is like when you are your own business owner, and that's kind of one of the biggest things that you need to understand when and if you do want to become a business owner, you're not going to have a cheerleader. No one's ever going to email you and be like, hey, you did a great job today. Like, especially in the beginning. So that part of it, like to be psychologically so strong and like to actually believe in yourself and like be your own cheerleader is one of the hardest things that I think I would say is in business, because no one is going to sit with you and be like, you got 100%, or you did so great today, Ajla, like blah, 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 you get a pizza party. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a thing. Yeah. So that's like the most important thing for me, at least, I think.
And I think that a lot of very successful people understand that. And it's not necessarily a learned experience. It's just that like maybe they don't require that, or that's not kind of what makes them excel. And like you said, I think that there are a lot of that's a tough thing working for a company where like you have all of these personalities together, or being on a team, and everyone requires different input to succeed. And like there's somebody who needs that reassurance and that affirmation, and then there's people who don't. There's people who just want more responsibility, and understanding how to kind of cater and tailor to all of these people. Like Nick, with as many people he has working for him, has to understand all of those people's wants and needs, and the people who can't be their own cheerleader may require some of that input on his end. And that's what makes like a good coach, a good leader, understanding how all of that works for people.
Yes, 100%. Do you guys use that one test? I can't remember what the test is, but it's like a personality test.
DISC?
For your employees?
I use the DISC survey. Drive, influence,
that might be the one.
Support, and clarity. Yeah.
I think
it's
that
like
might be the one.
four-sided. Yeah. So
yep. The four-sided. Yep.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yep. So I give it to anyone that I'm considering hiring.
And what is it?
Because it's called DISC, DISC.
Yeah.
And you take this test, and it basically tells you how strong you're in each of those categories. So D is drive, like, you know, motivation. I is influence. So if you're a good influencer, different from social media influencer. S is support, how well you support people, you know, like teaching. And then C is clarity. So clarity is like, you know, making sure something is done really well. You know, making sure that it's perfect, like spreadsheets, like, you know, can follow all the way through. For what it's worth, I rate very low in clarity, which makes complete sense because I'm high in drive and influence, where, you know, I'll be the guy that shows up on site and, you know, gets the team pumped up and shows you how to do something, and it's not going to come out great. But I'm not there to show you how to make it perfect. I'm there to show you, here's step A, and here's all the steps it will take you to get to Z. Mm-hmm. Now take that, and now you refine it. And that's what I've realized. Like, it was actually really eye opening for me, and that's how I end up hiring my operations manager, is very much on this survey, where it's like I needed someone that could be like my yin to my yang.
Yeah,
And
I'm sitting here listening to you, and like in my head, I'm thinking about the three of us who are talking right now would probably all be terrible employees, and we understood that and didn't want to be employees, yet we're business owners and responsible for potentially hiring employees. And it's like, how are you hiring employees based on what? Because you don't know how to be a good employee.
And honestly, Tyler, like, to speak to that, that is a role that I want to take off my plate.
Yeah.
I don't want to hire anymore. I want to hire
You don't know how to be an employee, so
hire.
why would you know how to hire an employee? Like, what are you basing it off of? What you think an employee should be like, but you were never a good one?
I got an award being a good employee, so I think I was pretty decent.
Oh my gosh.
It's glass, and it said best employee.
World's best dad.
You bought it on Amazon.
Whoa, I did not buy it. Someone gave it to me.
I mean, I think essentially when you go into finding an employee, you literally almost find someone that like you don't want to be yourself, if that makes sense. Like, you already know what you don't like, you know what I mean? So like, or you can't do, or like don't want to do whatever. So like, I'm going to find someone that does want to do it and can do it.
I want to see, I think I have it.
Your test results?
Yeah, because I just want to read not necessarily what mine.
It is really cool.
Is.
A lot of my business owner friends use that test. Essentially, it kind of tells you like what kind of employee they are and how they will fit within the team.
Yeah,
deep dives, personalities.
We had what was the guy Cantor, Steve? Nick?
Yeah, Steve Cantor. Yeah.
He was a football coach, and it was high school and then college. He played college football, and having the conversation with him about developing a team and kind of building a team. And I, for the first time, made the correlation of like building an athletic team, and like drew a line towards and equated that to building a professional team. And like, I just never put two and two together, that it's like very similar. And that when you're building this team, it has to have a well-rounded bunch of employees, and there needs to be many different people who are good at different things. And having this conversation with him about how he built athletic teams. And I'm like, being a boss is very much so like being a coach and putting a team together and understanding people's strengths and weaknesses and where you need to position those people. And it has to be so hard. Like, I don't know how you do it on a daily basis if you're kind of knee deep in it and not separated from that some. It's got to be so hard. Like, Nick, I don't know how you do it.
So I'm not going to read. You guys should Google DISC survey and take it. It's 12 pages long. So it really gives you a bunch of information. But one of these, I find this funny because my influence communication style says I'm persuasive, I'm animated, I'm expressive of my feelings, I share personal stories, I'm contagious with enthusiasm, and I get buy-in from others. But my limitations are that I exaggerate, I overuse gestures and facial expressions, I have a short attention span, I go off on tangents, and I want to be in the spotlight. And I read that and I laughed out loud, and I'm like, that is definitely who I am.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
And it's just like, as you read through it what it really did for me, and this is great for anyone to take. It really just made me understand, like, because I think a lot of times we focus on our weaknesses and we try to fix them. And what this does is it gives you the balance of what you're really good at and where you're not so good at. And then when you go to make it higher, it's like, well, find someone that can be a little bit more focused on clarity and, and can get down into the weeds and making sure that something is done from, 0 to 100. Where, okay. And same, like, it's similar to like the visionary and the executor. Is that the right? Visionary and
executor. I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm thinking of executioner right now.
No, hold on.
I don't think that's the right
visionary versus
executor.
Operator. So they're like in a business, it takes a vision. It typically takes a visionary and an operator. Where I'm the visionary. I don't want to be the operator. That's why I hired an operations manager. But either way, I'm not going to beat a dead horse with this. It's a great survey to take to really understand who you are, and then does help with the hiring process.
100% agree.
But well, we definitely appreciate your time. We know that we got a late start today.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, this was amazing.
Yeah, this was so much fun.
Yeah, for sure.
I appreciate you being on.
We obviously, Nick followed you first. We both follow your content, love what you're putting out. I think that it could be very helpful to a lot. You don't have to be a business owner. You don't have to be in construction. This transcends our industry. But I think that it is very important, especially with what's going on right now in the world and the financial world, to really grasp how to save money, why it's important, and the various options for doing so. And I think that you put a lot of content out that is very helpful to people. And I know that you're responsive when people get a hold of you, and a little bit fiery and everything else. And it's fun to see.
Yep. A lot of the comments on there can be very fun, and listen, I like to have fun back. So
for sure.
If you ever need some free entertainment, read the comments.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're brutal. Comments are brutal.
But I love it. I wouldn't do anything else. I'm built for it.
Well, I really appreciate everything that you do. If people want to follow your content, what's the best way to do that?
Yes. So it's Ajla_talks. AJLA_talks. It's a little hard to spell that one. And yeah, so it's both on platform Instagram and TikTok. So I'll be there.
Cool.
See you there.
And then what about your other business?
Yes. So I'm not sure how many construction workers are into skincare.
You never know.
However,
I have a great skincare routine, so.
Oh,
It's at the gym.
I do it at the gym.
Involved in skincare the most.
Yeah,
You're out in the sun, sweating all the time, So definitely please wear your sunscreen all the time. But it is called Eros Essentials, so it's EROS Essentials.com.
Cool.
Very organic, natural, vegan, all those things. And yeah, please protect your skin.
Cool. Awesome.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And it was awesome meeting you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Likewise.
We appreciate your time.
All right.
We will chat soon.
See ya.
See ya. Bye, guys.
Oh, she's got to close out. Ajla, can you hear us? Oh, no.
Oh, there
you go. Great. She's definitely an influencer.
Yeah, influencer
on the disc survey. She's got the hand motions like me.
Yeah.
She's high energy.
Absolutely.
I think it's. I'm glad you asked her to be on, because, and I hope everyone that's listening can take a little bit from it. Even some of the elementary points that I had mentioned. It really is. This industry, building specifically, is so complex and so high stress, and obviously, as she alluded to, her industry as well, but that we oftentimes choose finance to be in the backseat.
Yeah.
And it's that's usually the first thing, and there's the exception of those that get into this with a finance background, which I think is why they do so well in this industry, where it's some of the most successful builders and contractors I know weren't in this industry. They were finance guys or business guys, and they got into it because they understood how to run a business. And I think that, simply put, what I've realized over the last couple of years is that, it's not so much about, spending less and making more. It's way more about understanding what you're spending, and the tip, that tip about setting your alerts on your credit card. I mean, it sounds so minor, but when you constantly see every single transaction go in and out of your bank account and have a pulse on it, you are way more apt to have more self control over an unnecessary purchase.
For sure. Yeah, and go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
The whole, having Isla on, her page is full of content. It's full of little tips and tricks and loopholes, hacks, whatever you want to call them. The purpose of having her on wasn't to necessarily dig into all of those things, because she's already doing that. And to have her on and just go through all that crap again seems redundant when you could just go to her page, TikTok, Instagram, and check them out. It's more so for you guys and girls to start questioning things and, to start digging into how you operate and what potential opportunities there are for saving money with taxes, with investments. Having her on was kind of to help you guys and girls help yourselves and get the ball rolling, get the wheels rolling with that type of stuff. So I think that I don't love finances, investment, tax strategy like that. Maybe there's people that just geek out over that stuff and love it. But the way that she puts the content together, it's very easy to navigate. It's digestible. It's exciting. It's interesting, and it's easy to learn. And it's the tip of the iceberg. You have to do the work yourself, and you have to start looking into things. But it's a really good start for you guys, and at least it'll kind of ignite that spark that you can start taking this into your own hands and start moving forward with it. And I think that that's the biggest thing for me, is just for everyone to start questioning and looking into things and starting to do the work yourself.
Yeah, I mean, especially like you said, in nowadays, I think money is so important to understand. And the digestible content, you're exactly right. It's just the tip of the iceberg. And this is the opportunity. It was the same for me, where it's like I'm starting to read this stuff or hear this stuff and see it, and it made me interested in investing my time to read into it and dig into it more and ask more questions and talk to my CPA to make sure my strategy was right and that I wasn't overpaying, because frankly I felt every year that I was overpaying.
Yeah.
And it made me start questioning everything. And like to speak personally, like it made me question my insurance. I went through all of my insurance, and I went through and make sure that like my insurance was correct. Mm-hmm. And I ended up finding out that I was being I shouldn't say overcharged, but I was overclassifying some of my people. Yeah, you're
paying for people straight across the board as certain doing
it's
certain
like,
tasks.
Right. And it just really put me in this mode of like thinking about, I have to catch this stuff now, because if we continue to grow, it's just going to be swept under the radar. A very random thought came across my mind today. I was driving, but I've thought about these reoccurring expenses that I forget about, or I had like a registration for a trailer that I was still paying for that I didn't have, and I don't know why this crossed my mind, but I was like, imagine being UPS and having however many vehicles on the road. Do you think anyone is checking to see that they don't have like a registration that they're paying a couple grand a year for a truck that doesn't exist anymore?
I would
like silly things like that. But it's like that. But and I don't know the answer to that. But the point is there's all like we get wrapped up into things, and we forget that like that $2,000 software payment I had that I forgot about. It's like, that sounds ludicrous. Like there's probably plenty of people listening to this, like, screw you, Nick. Like I'd notice $2,000 and I'd cancel that immediately and fight for the $2,000 back. Me too. But the point, but
it's also different if you have multiple millions of dollars in expenses. That $2,000 could easily just get passed by and never notice.
And it's like, exactly, where it's like, I'd rather that in the bottom line, so then I can turn around and invest back into the business rather than pay for a software I don't need.
Yeah.
So it really did. You're exactly right. It's an opportunity where it's like, hey, here, let's shed some light on some information about how you can improve your finances, and then take that and do do with what you will.
And that's what comes with growth, right? You're a one-man operation, two-man, man or woman, both. When you're that small, those little expenditures aren't necessarily breaking your back. But when you start to grow and those numbers kind of extrapolate and that fluff grows bigger and bigger, it just makes it harder and harder to make money. And I think, it's even more important as you grow to understand how all of this stuff works, because $200 over one employee is one thing, but $200 over a couple hundred employees is a much bigger thing. And you just need to be aware of that. And if you don't tighten things up and you don't understand the opportunities that you have, it can cost you a lot of money, and it can cost your employees a lot of money. If you're giving back to your employees and you want them to be able to share in your profitability, at the end of the day, that's affecting everyone.
Yeah. Well, great episode today. Next week, we get Travis from Catalyst Built. He's been on before, but he wants to get into some additional topics that he didn't get to last time, and also wants to talk about building science horror stories, basically his enhanced suffering through greater understanding. So that will be next week. And we get some swag to give away to Mr. Carl's. Started listening to these guys right around the time I started my own design business, and they were actually the driving force that helped me take the leap. I really got inspired by some of the guests that they had on, and being a new dad myself, I always appreciate the emphasis they put on work-life balance. I've learned a lot about every facet of the business in the industry by listening to these guys and the gals they've had on the show, but especially the building side of the work. That being said, it's great that they incorporate people from every spectrum of the design and construction world to provide insights on how to be better every day. I appreciate what you guys are doing. So at Markart Design, I'll shoot you a DM on the Modern Craftsman. We'll get your address and size, and we'll get you some swag.
Thanks, man.
From one of our
Appreciate it.
sponsors, Upstate Merch. And thanks to our other sponsors, Rockwool and Duration Molding and Millwork.